When you talk about Erik Buell, his story isn't just about business. It's more like a story about an engineer's obsession and a vision that kept running into corporate reality. So, to really get the radical bikes that have his name on them, the ones with the frame for a gas tank, the brake on the rim, and a cruiser engine shoved into a sport bike chassis, you gotta know the man behind them first. Born in Pittsburgh in 1950, Erik Buell grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania. That's where he got his first mechanic lessons, learning to fix farm equipment when he was young. His first bike was simple, an Italian-made Perilla 90cc moped. But his big leap, the one that really defined his future, was when he got a 74 cubic inch Harley in a basket, a completely disassembled project bike. It was a total mix and match bike, a 1957 panhead engine stuffed into a 1952 frame with a KHK front end. He remembered that bike was painted red metal flake with crazy two-piece ape hanger handlebars, which would come loose and swing back and forth. He also talked about having to stuff wads of steel wool into the mufflers to quiet it down for the cops. But when he really got on it, it would shoot these glowing balls of flame out the back. Back then, the teenage Buell had basically already found his big idea, taking a big shaky American V-twin engine, the panhead, and forcing it into a different frame just for raw performance. That was the exact same thing he would do for his entire life. This need for speed quickly moved from the street to the track. Buell started racing motocross before switching to road racing in his early 20s. By the mid-1970s, he was a solid privateer racer in the AMA, riding a Yamaha TZ and a Ducati, and he even scored a couple of top 10 finishes. During this time, Buell was living a double life. By day, he was a motorcycle mechanic. By night, he was an engineering student at the University of Pittsburgh. This dual identity as a racer and an engineer was super important. He wasn't just feeling the engine vibrations and chassis flex on the track, he was also learning the physics behind it all in class. So, about his job with Harley-Davidson. That started after he graduated with an engineering degree in 1979. Buell turned down offers from big companies like General Motors. He only had one target: Harley-Davidson. Back then, HD was struggling. As Buell put it, he flew himself to Milwaukee and beat my way in the door to get a job there. He was hired as a chassis engineer and immediately got assigned to a legendary project, the FXR program. His official role was as a test engineer to help fix the handling, and he was heavily involved in its development. Using his racing experience, Buell tested the HD prototypes beyond normal riding limits. The result was a bike that's widely considered to have the best handling chassis Harley-Davidson ever made. Unfortunately, the story of the FXR was also like a preview of Buell's whole relationship with HD. The FXR was a huge technical success, but its replacement, the Dyna, didn't handle as well. HD switched to the Dyna because customers seemed to want the classic look and didn't care as much about handling. This was the core conflict that would follow Buell: his obsession with performance versus HD's priority on heritage and looks. It didn't take long for Buell to feel boxed in. Driven by his dream to build a pure American race bike, he made a bold move. In 1982, Erik Buell left his job at Harley-Davidson to chase his own dream. He founded Pittsburgh Performance Products and started working on his first race bike. The result was the 1983 Buell RW 750. It was a radical machine, an exotic 750 cubic centimeter two-stroke square four engine based on an English Barton design. The bike was designed for one purpose: to compete in the AMA Formula One class, and that bike was fast. When they tested it at Talladega, the RW 750 clocked 178 miles per hour. But just as Buell was getting ready to release the production version, disaster struck. The AMA announced they were canceling the Formula One class after the 1985 season. Instantly, the market for the RW 750 was effectively eliminated. Only one or two units were ever built. For Buell, this was a brutal business trauma. He'd built a brilliant bike for a narrow market, and when the rules changed, his whole company was suddenly obsolete. Instead of giving up, Buell pivoted. He focused on building the first world-class sport bike designed and assembled in the USA. He went back to his roots. He used the only American V-twin engine available, leftover Harley-Davidson XR1000 engines that weren't selling well. This is where the real Buell DNA was born, the RR1000 Battle Twin. The HDXR 1000 engine was ancient, air-cooled, and vibrated like crazy compared to Japanese sport bikes. Buell knew that. But he designed a chassis that brilliantly compensated for the engine's weaknesses. His frame was a light but stiff steel space frame. To tame the V-twin's vibration, he created a patented isoplanar engine mounting system. He used the engine itself as a stressed part of the frame to add rigidity. And most innovative of all, he put the rear monoshock horizontally under the engine. Buell was proving that handling and rigidity mattered more than just horsepower. He produced 50 of the RR1000, which was followed by the RR1200 and RS1200 West Twin, using the Sportster engine. Buell's work definitely got noticed. The company he had left, Harley-Davidson, now saw him as an opportunity. In 1993, Harley-Davidson bought a 49% minority stake in the Buell Motorcycle Company. This was a low-risk strategic move for HD. They wanted to get into the lucrative sport bike market. But they were afraid of three things: spending a ton on R&D, alienating their current riders, and repeating the embarrassing flop of their own XLCR 1000 Cafe Racer from 1977. Buell was the perfect solution. He had already proven the concept. By buying a minority stake, HD could profit from this new market while keeping it at arm's length. Buell became their isolated sport bike laboratory. The partnership got deeper. HD bought another 49% in 1998. And finally, in 2003, the Buell Motorcycle Company became a wholly owned subsidiary of Harley-Davidson. With HD's financial backing and dealer network, Buell's production took off. This era, known as the tube frame era, produced some iconic bikes. It started with the S2 Thunderbolt in 1994. This was the first bike after the HD investment, a more mature sport touring bike, with a half-fairing and comfy ergonomics, using the 1203 cubic centimeter Sportster engine. Then, in 1996, came the S1 Lightning. This was a radical statement and pure Erik. A totally stripped-down, naked street fighter. The S1 became famous for its aggressive style and its tiny single seat, which quickly got nicknamed the one-buttock-sized seat. But the dealers wanted something easier to sell. So, in 1997, the M2 Cyclone was introduced. It was a more pragmatic alternative, offering a comfortable two-person seat, but still packing that 1,203 cubic centimeters punch. That same year, the S3 Thunderbolt also arrived as a more developed sport touring option. The peak of this tube frame era was the X1 Lightning in 1999, which replaced the S1. This was a big step up, replacing the carburetor with dynamic digital fuel injection and using a stiffer, redesigned frame. This lineup really showed the company trying to balance three things: Erik's pure performance obsession, the commercial demands from HD dealers, and the technical limits of the Sportster engine. If the tube frame era was about evolution, the next era was a total revolution. In 2002, Buell introduced the XB chassis, a quantum leap that left the old design behind. This new XB platform was driven by what Buell called the trilogy of tech. Three core principles that were all connected. They were mass centralization, chassis rigidity, and minimal unsprung weight. To get this, Buell rolled out a bunch of radical innovations. The big, rigid aluminum twin spar frame, doubled as the fuel tank. The massive aluminum swing arm, doubled as the oil tank. The patented single disc brake, ZTL, was mounted directly to the perimeter of the front rim, not the hub. And finally, the muffler was moved from the side to a dense space right under the engine. This revolutionary XB platform led to a diverse lineup. First was the XB9R Firebolt in 2002. This was the first XB, a super compact fared sport bike with a new 984 cubic centimeter engine. Testers praised its razor-sharp handling, proving the trilogy of tech worked. Soon after, the naked or Street Fighter version, the Lightning, was released. This became the iconic XB model. Buell also brought back the bigger torquey 1203 cubic centimeter engine, XB12, for those who wanted that classic V-twin grunt, while the 984 cubic centimeter, XB9, offered a higher revving character. Maybe Buell's boldest move was the 2005 Ulysses XB12X. This was his attempt to get into the booming adventure touring market. Buell cleverly called it an adventure sport bike. But the bike was polarizing. The Ulysses quickly got the nickname useless by some critics. There seemed to be two reasons. First, people were still skeptical about Buell's reliability because of problems with the older tube frame bikes. Second, the market misunderstood it. The Ulysses was judged poorly as a BMW GS competitor off-road, but it was never designed for that. With 17-inch sport bike-sized wheels, the Ulysses was more of a touring supermotored, a tough road bike that could handle a gravel road, not an off-road explorer. Even with the success of the XB platform, Erik Buell finally hit the performance ceiling of the decades-old air-cooled Sportster engine. To truly compete on the world superbike stage, he needed a modern engine. In 2008, he finally got it. Buell launched the 1125R, the first mass-produced liquid-cooled Buell. The engine, nicknamed the Helicon, was a compact 1,125 cubic centimeters V-twin designed to Buell's specs and built by the engine specialist BRP Rotax in Austria. This engine made a claimed 146 horsepower, a real superbike number. This bike was followed by the 1,125 CR Cafe Racer in 2009. But this was a tragic irony. Buell finally got the modern, powerful engine he always wanted, but he got it after Harley-Davidson had 100% control of his company. The market's reaction was mixed. While it was praised for its power, the bike was criticized for its puffy looks, especially the big side fairings for the radiators, and bad fueling issues on the early models. It was a painful compromise. The bike that should have been Buell's masterpiece was compromised by corporate design by committee. Erik Buell himself later admitted he regretted the launch strategy for that bike. It was a clear sign he was no longer in full control. Right when Buell finally had the tech to compete at the highest level, his world collapsed. On October 15, 2009, Harley-Davidson put out a shocking press release. They were discontinuing the entire Buell product line, effective immediately. The backdrop was the 2008 global financial crisis. Harley-Davidson's net income had plummeted 71.4%. HD's new CEO, Keith Wandel, an outsider who didn't even ride motorcycles, was tasked with saving the company. His strategy was to focus on the Harley-Davidson brand. In this new plan, Buell was seen as a distraction. The announcement shocked the industry. On the same day as the cold corporate press release, Erik Buell posted a video speech on the Buell website. In the video, he looked more shocked than anyone. The video went viral because of its raw human emotion. A man publicly crying while announcing the death of his life's dream. One report noted that Buell only wishes he would have been part of the conversation, implying he was just as blindsided by the decision as everyone else. But for a guy who doesn't give up easy, the shutdown wasn't the end. It was a liberation. The speed of Erik Buell's comeback was amazing. The Buell Motorcycle Company officially closed on October 30th, 2009. In November 2009, just days later, Erik Buell Racing EBR was founded. The transition was brutal. All 190 Buell employees had been laid off by HD. The new EBR company started with just 6 core employees. EBR's initial goal was to get back to Buell's roots. Under a license from Harley-Davidson, EBR was formed to produce complete race-only motorcycles and parts based on the Buell 1125R to support privateer racers. Effectively, Erik Buell was right back where he started. EBR in 2009 was a mirror image of Pittsburgh Performance Products in 1983. Free from the need to please HD dealers, Buell's first instinct was to go back to his original dream, building a pure, no-compromise American race bike. The first product from the newborn EBR was the 1190RR. This was a track-only bike. The EBR team took the 1125R Rotax engine, completely disassembled and blueprinted it, and increased the bore from 103 millimeters to 106 millimeters. The result was a new 1,190 cubic centimeter engine, putting out 185 rear-wheel horsepower with a dry weight of just 360 pounds. The 1190RR was Erik Buell finally unleashed. It was the bike he regretted not launching in the first place.